days or?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I'm having surgery on Thursday, and it's like at 7 in the morning,
Huh.
and it's going to be a one of those carotid surgeries. So I think they do them all the time. So everything's happening kind of fast. They called the other day and said we'll do surgery Thursday. So,
Wow. Wow.
so
They do them all the time, but not to you all the time. Um, that's, yeah.
I'll be glad to get it over with, and I'm feeling great though. So had a good echo, one of those echocardiograms. It was really good. It showed my heart was doing good. So
Good.
We'll be holding you in the light.
thank you.
Other joys or concerns to share?
Well, favorite grandson Drake was in a contest yesterday, and it's another group that I didn't know he played in. It's saxophones, and they play apparently classical French music, and they got a gold. So I was very proud of him.
Yesterday, we had a celebration for my son-in-law, Michael, who it's Laura's husband. He turned 60. I married an older woman that's who had kids. And so to have a son-in-law who's only 14 years younger than me is kind of odd. But his dad passed 36 years ago, and I've kind of been his father figure in some ways ever since. But it was a fun celebration, and we gave I gave him a very silly gift that had been handed to that I made for my father when he turned 60. He handed it back to me when I turned 60, and it's so now Michael has it, and I would describe it, but it's really not appropriate for meeting for worship. But if you want to read about it, it's you can go to my Facebook page, and there's a link there to a piece I wrote about what it is. But it was wonderful to be with family. Uh, all their kids were there. The littles were all there running around. Uh, and I was reminded how blessed I am to have their love after all these years. And it was just a wonderful time.
I guess joy and concern together is that my triplet siblings turned 70 this past week, and this weekend, this yesterday was the family celebration, except that we weren't able to be there because Steve came down with the norovirus on Friday, and that is one wicked bug. I want to tell you. I hope that none of you get it. You can continue to keep him in your prayers. He is doing much better, but it's one of those things that when it knocks you over, it just knocks you flat. So it was a joy and a concern that I've got for you there.
Well, I'm sure there's lots still on our hearts uh, that we need to lift, and also many joys that we can lift and celebrate with each other. And one for me is that we're all together. It's time of fellowship and worship, and what a good time it is. Um, we don't have any music this morning because Lynn was not going to be here. But my theme is light. And I'm calling it based on a book that Jonathan recommended a while back. All the light all the light we cannot see. And it's a novel. I'll say more about it a little bit, but I'm adapting that title a little bit. All the light we can and cannot see. And so the theme of light today. And if there was to be an opening song, it would have been Lead Kindly Light, which is one of my favorite hymns. Lead kindly light amid the encircling gloom, lead thou me on. The night is dark and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene. One step, enough for me. I was not ever thus, nor prayed that thou shouldst lead me on. I love to choose and see my path, but now lead thou me on. I love the garish day in spite of fears. Pride ruled my will. Remember not those past years. So long that thy power has blessed me, sure it still will lead me on, o'er moor and fen, or crag and torrent, till the night is gone. And with the morn those angel faces smile, which I have loved long since and lost a while. Lead kindly light. Jesus told his disciples, you're the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I've been thinking a lot about light these past weeks. For a couple of reasons. For one, I've experienced a lot of different lights the past month. And the primary reason is every year, for the past number of years, I've been invited to write a series of devotionals for what used to be called the Guidepost Annual. Now it's an annual book called Walking in Grace that goes out by Guidepost. Has 365 meditations, one for every day. And this year I chose the theme of light. It just seemed like an appropriate theme when I started writing back in the fall. And I have to admit, I got kind of stuck early on in the writing. I had talked to our editor, and it was, I was still pretty overwhelmed by grief. I just didn't have the energy to write much. I could sketch stuff out, but I couldn't kind of keep with it. And then came all the joy of my health going kaput over 6 weeks and experiencing lots of light. When I came out of the hospital, I had a kind of renewed energy and could really get to writing. And I started thinking about all the lights that I've encountered in those recent months and how they all come from God and illuminate different parts of God that I don't often consider. So I wrote about the noonday sun. I started with a Noel Coward quote, "Only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the noonday sun." And I wanted to go in Hoosier Farmers. There are some noonday suns I thought I had to be crazy to be out in. But the day I wrote that piece was a bright, sunny, it was last week when it was nice and warm and the sun was shining straight down, and I saw things that I didn't normally see because there weren't long shadows being cast there at noon. I saw all kinds of animal tracks that I don't normally see, including a bobcat now. Now I see, I like the very soft light, like today here in Indiana. It's low gray clouds, no shadows, but it's kind of soothing in general. And sometimes I need that soothing in general in my soul, not just through my physical eyes. But then there are the lights we can't see, not with our physical eyes, anyhow. And the novel, All the Light We Cannot See, is a 2014 novel by Anthony Doerr. And it's set in World War II primarily, and it was a popular novel and then a Netflix series. And I won't say a lot about it because I'm going to spoil it in case you decide to read it, which I would recommend. But I began to wonder when Jonathan first mentioned that book, and I went out and bought it, is, well, what are the lights we cannot see? And then I thought of a number of lights that I choose not to see or I'm just not aware of. And prime among those resonate with my Quaker faith belief that God's light is in every person and we're called to look for it. Recently, I was delighted to read Doerr's own words about the title. He said, it's a reference first and foremost to all the light we literally cannot see. That is, the wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum that are beyond the ability of human eyes to detect. It's also a metaphorical suggestion that there are countless invisible stories. Ultimately, the title is intended as a suggestion that we spend too much time focused on only a small slice of the spectrum of possibility. Well, I was subjected, beginning the 19th, to a number of the lights we cannot see. And I'd never really thought of them as lights before. I never really thought of X-rays as light, but they are. It's just nothing we can see, and it has the ability to penetrate and help a doctor see the things we can't see, and they never could see with the naked eye without cutting someone open and just going, oh my gosh. The other is CT scans, which are even more detailed than X-rays. And then echocardiograms, which I had a number of those over the last hospitalization. They couldn't figure out really what was going on beyond the pneumonia, which only revealed pneumonia in my lungs until the CAT scan. So then they added that kind of light, which I can't see, but it gave them a picture of what was going on, not just with my lungs, but there was something not right about the heart. And then they did the echocardiogram, which gave a picture that showed they could barely see the heart because it was surrounded by all this fluid that accumulated from the pneumonia infection that went to my pericardium and filled that up and was squeezing my heart, so it was failing. It's like years ago, I wouldn't have made it because they wouldn't have been able to see it and know what to do. And then they used the echocardiogram to guide the way they were gonna drain all that fluid off my heart, which was really quite a fascinating experience to lay there and think of somebody sticking a giant needle into your pericardium while you're laying there, and they go, "You want to watch this on TV?" And I said, "No, thank you. I'll just be happy to listen to what you're doing." But they were just very kind of nonchalant and very professional. And 10 minutes later, it was over. And all of a sudden, my heart beat freely for the first time in probably weeks. So I appreciate those lights we cannot see because we're unable to. And I thought about those lights as lights that God has sent my way, spiritually too. There are times going on within my soul that God has to have a penetrating light that often brings a diagnosis that I can then see when I'm mean-spirited or selfish or being hateful or all kinds of things. The early Quakers often thought of the light within as being a searchlight that pointed out every part of our lives, including the ones that really need fixing and repenting of. Often when we talk about the inner light, we think of it as a soft glowing candle sort of thing, but they didn't always feel that way. And I thought of those invisible lights that way. What's going on in my soul that God sees that I really need to spend time with if I could just pull that spiritual echocardiogram up and see what's going on in my spiritual heart. But all around me also are God's lights that I often don't choose to see, or I'm just too busy. To use Doerr's metaphor, they're invisible stories, invisible light around us every day in the people that we come across, whether in person or maybe in television, in the news. Sometimes I find it very hard, and I've admitted that in one of my books, Life Lessons from a Bad Quaker, that sometimes the that of God in me has a hard time seeing the that of God in other people. And because I don't like him and I don't really want to. I don't like what they're doing. I think it's not keeping with my understanding of the gospel, and so I judge them instead of trying to answer that of God in them and call them to their best self. But the poet, one of my favorite poets, was a Catholic priest, Gerald Manley Hopkins. And he wrote, "Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through features of men's faces. Christ is at play in 10,000 places, in limbs and eyes that are not his." That so fits with our belief that we need to look for God in others. The bag boy at the supermarket, the postal worker who delivers our mail, the unhoused person pulling a rickety old cart laden with all their worldly possessions through little downtown Mooresville. Same guy can be seen frequently. The driver cuts me off on the freeway. When we choose not to really see them, we miss the light of God in them, shining towards us. I find that convicting and know I need to do better. There are all kinds of God's lights around us. And we need to ask God to lead kindly light. Help me not to be so controlling or thinking I'm in control. Help me to look beyond my own self-interest and say, speak, Lord, show, Lord, thy servant's looking. What do you have for me to say today? Through gentle light, through noonday light, and through Christ at play in 10,000 places. So my prayer today is open my eyes that I might see you all around me, especially in the faces of anyone I encounter today. We'll continue on with some more unprogrammed worship. I know some folks need to leave. Wish you Godspeed and hope to see you next Sunday. And the rest of us will continue on as we're able.
Thank you, Brent, for your message. I wanted to end it with a big musical number, Let the Sun Shine In, but I thought, well, I'll wait for another time.
If you feel led, go ahead.
Your message of light took me down a path of my youth. How I would pray and pray for Vietnam to be over, and it never happened. And the prayers became more transactional with God than anything. And you keep doing that and it doesn't happen, you get tired and you put it down. There's no reward for your prayer. But as I got older, I've come to an understanding that the prayer is for peace, but I believe it's for my peace. The turmoil within me, and that we can sit, have our cup of coffee, the morning sun, watch birds at the bird feeder, and I think, how can those not be rewards? And I believe this is a cycle in life that you get to in your aging. And I really do appreciate it. Seeing light differently is such a beautiful experience.
as Brent was talking about the light, the first picture that popped into my mind was of the food pantry where Norma and I volunteer. If I saw some of the people that I meet there on the street, I would possibly be judgmental or things like that because I would see them as a category. But when I meet them at the food pantry, I have a chance to meet them as individuals and a chance to interact with them one-on-one. And I've been there long enough now that I know them. I know some of them, and I look forward to seeing them. And it's a very different experience than it would be if I saw them as that category. But it also works the other way. Oftentimes when one of them comes into the food pantry for the first time, they're defensive. They possibly are angry. Some of them are embarrassed to be there and are expecting us to be judging them for needing to be there. But when they find out that the people who work there and who volunteer there are not into the judgment thing and are really glad to meet them as people, then they relax and are open and friendly and see the light in us. So the light is visible both ways, in ways that it couldn't be in other places. It's if somebody had told me that I would really enjoy and look forward to working at a food pantry, I think I might have questioned that just a bit. But my experience has been so wonderful to be there and to meet these people as individuals and to have a chance to see the light of God in them.
Every morning during the week, I have a conversation with a pair of friends, Quaker friends of mine, and I do a reading, and I try to write the reading out every day, but I'm always like a million readings behind and writing them out. Last night I wrote one that I had read last April, and I'm in a 12-step program. I'm not in AA, but everybody who's in any 12-step program reads the big book. And in it says, it's plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and happiness. To the precise extent we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, and I'd say with any human being, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, the business of resentment is infinitely grave. We have found that it is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity returns, we drink again, and for us to drink is to die. And so he goes on a little bit about you know, how you work with resentments. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. And when a person offended us, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick person. How can I help them? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done." And there's so many ways in which my 12-step life and my Quaker life dovetail, but that certainly was a powerful reading for me. It has been over the years. And, it's been my goal, to which I am only indifferently successful, to ask that question of the people who bother me the most. In what way can I be of service to them? Can I remember that they are sick and suffering souls?
Toward the end of my message, I referenced a couple things. One was the bag boy at the grocery store, which that was based on the 11 years I worked downtown, and there was a grocery. The only grocery downtown was right next to our office. So I was often over there, and there was a little gnomey kind of guy. His name, I quickly learned, was Roger. I don't know what his problem was. He ended up a bag boy. He was brilliant mind, and he widely read, and he heard that I wrote books, and so he wanted to talk about books all the time. He heard I was a Quaker, and one day I was going through the line. He handed me a handwritten 3-page story by Defoe called "The Quaker and the Ham." It was all written in this very precise hand of Rogers, and a story about a Quaker and a ham, of all things, in England. And he loved to talk about spiritual things. And I had a book signing at our office, which was next door. I invited him to it, and he said, "No, I can't do that." I said, "Well, will you come over? Can I bring you a book?" And he goes, "Okay." But I just was, again, one of those invisible people. And he brought a lot of joy to my life. But also working downtown, I had to contend with rush hours. And when I make that drive now, I think, how did I put up with this? Because I am not the calmest guy when I'm driving, and I get very upset. But one day, a friend of mine, who some of you know, Howard Macy, biblical scholar, Old Testament, he also is a great believer in fun, and he has the red nose kit that he sends out to people who sometimes get too serious, and it is a red clown nose and an instruction guide. And so one day, the day I had got it, he sent it to me at work. I wore it all day, and I learned a lot of things. Life is calmer if you're wearing a big red nose, because you can't take yourself seriously. And it's hard to cuss somebody out on the freeway when you're wearing a red nose. And then the day after I got that, I'd left it at home, and I was getting upset with the driver, and I mentioned that whoever cuts us off. And that day, a friend of mine who's a poet, Jeannie Murray Walker, just happened to send me this poem she wrote called "Little Blessings Spoken in Road Rage." And I will leave that with us as our closing, to look beyond what's irritating us and speak a blessing. And it starts, "Chariot from Hades, fire glinting from its windshield, steel knife splitting the atom to pull in front of me, so close, now I can see the driver, her phone, can hear the death ring. Searching for a place to get away, I swerve into a corridor of hate, detesting her. My body fired with full throttle hatred. I rev up, speed ahead, so close now I can see her mouth, a frightened grimace. How exposed she is, wearing only the flimsy dress of a car, her brief face etched and dying in the air. When someone calls, bless this child. May her parents see her alive tonight, speaking through me, a voice, then peace, as she passes safely by." Well, blessings on us all. As Tiny Tim said, God bless us, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Twinette will be holding you in prayer early Thursday morning. And please keep us posted. Be well. Godspeed.
Thank you for your light.
Thanks, Brent.